Hi, you're about to watch a celebration of Faribault, the 1855 live show, which originally premiered at the Paradise Center for the Arts in September of 2018.
That's right. What you're about to see is a documentation of several different performance nights spliced together so you can get an idea of those audience reactions. However, being a piece of live theater, it can't fully be done justice in video form. We had a live orchestra, live actors, professional lighting, and surround sound, none of which can fully be done justice in the video format.
That being said, I think you're going to have a lot of fun, and we hope this will be a nice piece of entertainment for you.
And a nice piece of education.
Hello. Hello. Welcome. Thank you very much. Welcome. I'm Samuel Temple.
I'm Logan Ledman. This month in the Paradise Center for the Arts, we're bringing you a celebration of Faribault, the 1855 live show.
Yes, now, as you can see in your programs, this is a culmination of a lot of groups of people coming together. We have 20 people in the cast, 11 in the tech crew. We have a 9-instrument orchestra. This is a collaboration between the Lockwood Theater Company, the Paradise Community Theater, the Paradise Center for the Arts staff, and finally the Southeastern Minnesota Arts Council. From that last group, CMAC, we received a $3,000 grant to put the show on, and the work that CMAC does is only possible because Minnesota is a state that values showcasing heritage and encouraging artists. So thank you, people of Minnesota.
Also, you can check your programs for some cool new updates about shows coming to the Paradise soon. Specifically, the Savannah Jack, a Nashville country band, will be coming in on October 13th at 7:30. They've actually been the opening act for Kenny Rogers for many years.
Kenny Rogers?
Yeah, Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers? Boy, Kenny.
You know, Sam, sometimes when it comes to jokes about Kenny Rogers, you gotta know when to hold them.
You can look in your programs for the PCT Honor Roll and the season sponsor, the Faribault Daily News.
Good segue.
Thank you.
You know, few things have been as fulfilling for me as the process of creating this show. I will never forget the long hours we spent at the Minnesota Historical Society sifting through letters, or the late nights spent reading and researching, or the later nights spent discussing and investigating the show's characters, or the very early mornings spent reading and revising our script. It has been a labor of love, and we are beyond excited to share these stories with you tonight.
History is at its heart deeply personal. In researching these people from Faribault, we fell in love not only with their stories, but their voices. The voices we encountered through letters and anecdotes and original quotes from these people. So when we were writing the script, it was a priority for us to include as many of those original quotes, these voices from these people. So these are voices that haven't spoken in over a century. And we're certain that you will fall in love with them just like we did.
As a final couple of notes here, this show will feature fog. It is anti-asthmatic, it is not dangerous. The show also features sudden loud noises, moments of intensity, and depictions of war. And as a final note, please turn off any cell phones, pagers, or passenger pigeons you have on you.
There is one last group that we haven't spoken about in great detail, and that is the group put together by Sam Dwyer, 17 years old. He has written all original music. Take it away.
Whoa now. Whoa, girl. Faribault! Mr. Faribault!
Mr. Whipple, it is early.
Mr. Faribault, I have an urgent request from Governor Ramsey.
Regarding
A company of men. There's been an attack in Afton.
an attack? That's not possible. The rebels can't even get out of Louisiana.
It wasn't the Confederates. It was a Dakota uprising, Faribault. 5 farmers were killed. The governor has called it war.
Little Crow was against a violent response. He knows it's an unwinnable fight.
The governor wants you to raise a company of men. You'll be the right-hand man to a General Sibley.
Henry, he and I worked for the American Fur Company some time ago. He's a good friend. When do they need the men by?
As soon as you are able, Faribault. The war is on.
We worked together in Mendota. If he's the general charged with bringing us peace, my full trust is with him.
Good.
My son George is fluent in the Dakota languages. He'll be a valuable resource for Henry. General Sibley.
Very good.
Taopi is a good man. A Dakota. A Christian. He grew up with Little Crow. Also a good translator and a good friend.
Am I expected to deliver these?
In good health, yes, please.
Did Alex leave?
Just now. Do you need to see a doctor?
No, I'm better now. Collapsed in my field outside of town yesterday. Some Indians passed by, thought I was drunk, but I was still there when they came back. They came to check if I was breathing. I looked like death. They brought me to the only place they knew we'd both be safe.
To Faribault.
Alex fixed me up, fussed over me all night. He's a good man. Always has been. Sold me my land when I first moved to town. Still rightly owns 2 of my pigs.
Can I give you a ride back to your farm, then?
Oh, my nephew lives a block away. I'll be his burden for today, but thanks.
Whipple. Henry Whipple.
I didn't know I was speaking to a bishop.
Well, I see you at service on Sunday.
Afraid I'm a good German Lutheran.
Who just spent the night in a Catholic's house.
Funny town. Welcome to Faribault.
My boy, let me tell you a story from when I was your age. Like most young men, I was overconfident. I thought I knew a lot about the scriptures and all that. And I was living next to the Reverend back then, and he wanted me to cover for him one Sunday. He was going to be out of town. So I dusted off an old sermon I hadn't done in a while. Thought it'd be a sure hit. Couldn't miss. So Sunday rolls along, and I am delivering this thing mightily. Thomas, I am pounding the pulpit. I am repeating lines with greater and greater intensity, while my enunciation was so violent, my spit reached the third pew. So I had it shown off. Showed him I was a bright young guy. And after the service, one of the older church members comes up to me, and I think he's coming up to, shake my hand and say what a bright future I have. He puts his hand on my right shoulder and he pulls me in close, you see, and he says, "My boy, that was garbage." We actually became good friends after that. He was a bishop, he was a judge up in Utica, pretty well respected. We went to lunch after that, and he said, "I have learned more philosophy than you will ever know. Never preach to the judge, preach to the sinful man." I never preached to the judge again. I tell them the love of Jesus Christ, and that's my work.
Impressive anecdote.
Well, Thomas, it taught me that God's message in Christ is to the heart and not to the brains.
Well, if a bishop's business is with the heart, a lawyer's business is with the brain.
And how does the lawyer's business go?
Suitably. Dull as usual. But what we do, we get paid for at a good rate, because Batchelder and I charge well higher than any other attorney in the county. Oh, I just wrapped up my more noble work, though. Working for the government.
Joy of joys.
County Attorney Thomas Scott Buckham, at your service. I make more in the private sector.
Well, now maybe you can move out of that boarding house.
No, I don't really care for that kind of spectacle. The only possession I have any real passion for is books, which have become more of a delicacy out here than expected. A warmer, better red climate might suit me more.
Better suit us all. Oh, Tom, meet Alexander Faribault.
Oh, yeah.
I know, Tom. You work with Batchelder on Central Avenue.
Well, that's right, sir. It's a fine space within smelling distance of both the livery stable and the Indian burial site. Mr. Faribault, I am prepared to serve under you and General Sibley to help put down the uprising. I will fight with valor, and you need not doubt my preparedness to give my life for my home.
I pray it doesn't come to that.
Well, as the Apostle Paul says, and though I had the gift of prophecy and knew all secrets and all knowledge, yea, if I had all faith so that I might remove mountains, but had not courage, I were nothing.
Love.
I beg your pardon?
And though I had the gift of prophecy and knew all secrets and had all knowledge, yea, if I had all faith so that I could remove mountains and had not love, I were nothing. If you two would excuse me for a moment.
Despite your slight rewording, you seem to have an extensive understanding of the theological. Is that what you studied?
No. I was brought up in it. My father was a preacher, and back in Scotland he was known nationwide.
He provided
He
big
gave me
shoes
name
to
after
fill.
the famous...
Did he charge the highest in the county?
No. He isn't one for living in extravagance. He gave me what fortune he had in gold so I could travel here.
The sacrifices parents make. My father was a fur trader, raised me in that. He was a man of his morals. Certainly set me on course for my life here, too.
If you are resolved to welcome those savages into this church to slaughter us in our place of worship, then you can know that you have betrayed the Christians of Faribault. God will judge you for welcoming savages.
Mr. Brown.
You pray with them, you burn with them too.
Mr. Brown! My apologies, gentlemen. It appears the editor of the local newspaper had some feedback on how I run the church.
You are courageous to let the Dakota into your sanctuary.
No, Alexander, the Braves are the courageous ones. They have their custom, their culture, their great spirit. I teach them the love of Christ, and if they choose to follow, then they follow and are welcome in my church. If they were a good man and a good Dakota, I have little urgency to solicit them. Just as I have no need to sell to you, you Catholic. Or you Scotsman. If you are devout in whatever you practice, I have no qualm with that.
Boy, I'd be nervous if you and my father ever got to talking.
Would the discussion get violent?
Oh, no. Sermons are long enough with one preacher. With two, I'd be stuck here till the second coming.
You and I had better get going, Tom. We set out tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Whipple, take care of it.
I'll have you in my prayers.
And we'll have you in ours.
Bishop Thomas.
Are you the bishop?
Oh, indeed I am. I don't believe we've had the pleasure.
I am Audrey Dietrich.
Are you new to...
Sermon. I heard your sermon last Sunday, and I don't know, I felt compelled to see you.
Are you new to Faribault?
I am occupying the hotel at present.
I see. That's a beautiful child. How old is he?
Joshua is 7 months.
Has he been baptized?
Oh, but that is the subject of query, Bishop. I want to raise my child in the name of our Father, but my kind are not accepted in any congregation.
Please, Mrs. Dietrich, all are welcome to confide without judgment.
No! You don't understand! It's my work.
I see, your work. Oh, do not worry, my child. Here we are a refuge for the fallen. You are welcome here.
Oh, thank you, Bishop Whipple.
You'll never have to work as a lady of the night again.
What? A lady of the night? No, you misunderstand. It's worse than that. We've been turned away from congregation after congregation because I'm an actress.
Mrs. Dietrich, do not worry. You will not be turned away just because you're an actress.
Oh, you truly are saintly, Bishop, for accepting us, even when your congregation may oppose us.
I would have received you had it left me with a congregation of one mother and a babe.
General Henry Sibley. Quite the title for a man with no military experience.
Don't be so dismissive, friend. Your hunting partner was always quite the marksman.
Right. And I suppose these insurgents will have the same wartime strategy as a quail.
Here's to hoping.
I suspect your strategic strength lies more in the political arena.
You were just as qualified for the position as I was, Alex. I just,
spent more time in St. Paul than me?
Spent more time in St. Paul than you.
You must be busy traveling around the state with all your official business. I have decided not to write to you anymore. I wrote you 3 letters some time ago and never had any response from you. Imagine my disappointment when the mail comes in and the long-expected letter from you has not come.
Alex.
It makes me feel bad, but when you are through writing to your friends, maybe you will remember us poor people and take a moment to write and let us know something of your doing.
I think I'll be at my camp on the Cannon River soon enough after this fire is put out. You are welcome to visit. At least you want to meet me.
Your invitation is welcome. I'll consider it. Mr. Rice had a party last week.
Ah?
I had the honor to not be invited.
Ah.
Name a county after someone.
A display of gratitude.
Indeed. I am distracting you from your duties.
Oh, no, a friendly face is welcome in this affair. Frankly, I want to be rid of this as soon as possible.
I am sure both parties are hoping for a speedy conclusion. Little Crow is of the Matawakatan.
Correct.
Does that fact impair your judgment?
If he were Wahpeton, would that impair yours?
Perhaps.
My past wife's tribe is not who I'm hunting. It's the insurrectionists.
Hunting? Careful, Henry. These aren't our quail.
Teope shared your concern. He wrote me a letter. I told him I came down here to punish the murders of my people. It's not my intent to injure any innocent person.
Do your men know that?
Here's to hoping. Alex, look out there. Across the bluffs, there.
It's our old trading post.
God, the hours we spent there, looking up here.
It flooded less up here. That's why my father moved.
Smart man.
He moved to a new site, right over there.
Where I spent more hours still.
It was a shame to leave the island, but it was practical.
I wonder what he'd think to see me here on the inside of Fort Snelling. In this.
It depends on if he knew your foe.
Peace will come, Alex. This will be done. We'll appease and move on.
Here's to hoping.
Sent a party to relieve the Lower Sioux Agency. A group of Dakota men were hiding in the thickets. They ambushed. Killed half the men. They died in the river trying to swim away. Those were my soldiers. The civilian casualty count's already hundreds.
I've heard the stories. Women and children pulled from carriages and murdered. Farmers shot in their fields. Chaos.
Too much.
The refugees from the attacked settlements have made their way to my town.
At least they have that safe haven. Your cabin was always like a home to me. 2,000 fled New Ulm. The whole population. The town burned to the ground, smoldering for days. My heart is steeled against them. Governor Ramsey has charged me with exterminating the Indians or driving them forever beyond the border of the state. I will sweep them with the besom of death.
Is she in here?
Anna, calm down. She's fine.
Well, I've only been gone a day. I've already been called back, so it must be serious.
It was a slight complication, dear, but she should be fine now. We summoned you here in case.
What a horrible contingency to put in place.
Oh, Anna, you have your own life to live. You can't let your sister and your old mother keep you from experiencing the world.
Teaching country children arpeggios, I'm really leading an adventurous life.
Oh, Anna, that's not what I meant. What I mean is, learn everything that you can. Take in culture. Take in music. Learn every one of those darn arpeggios you keep talking about.
Okay, and after I've done all that?
Well, you could find a rich man, get married, and give me lots of grandchildren to dote on.
I'll see what I can do. But Brooklyn doesn't have as many options as you might think. Besides, you're too busy for grandchildren. My sister and I keep you busy enough.
That you do. And I'm sorry to keep writing you every time her situation gets worse, but Anna, your family needs you. Your sister needs you.
I know, Ma. I don't mind being home.
Well, there are worse places to be than Brooklyn.
on here. Up front. You don't seem as tired as you ought to be, Holbrook.
Why should I be, Captain? We haven't fought any.
If marching and burying bodies isn't service enough for you, you can go get your soldiering in and go be a lookout. Get.
Oh, yes, yeah. Here we go. Oh. This horror will grow mild, this darkness light. Oh. There's only so many bodies you can bury before going mad. Only so many miles you can march before needing sleep. It's practically night anyway.
What hath night to do with sleep?
You've read Milton?
The library at Fort Snelling wasn't exactly prolific. Paradise Lost was one of my favorite English books.
It was my absolute favorite at university. I must have read it at least 10 times.
Never can true reconcilement grow where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep.
Have they pierced too deep here? Those wounds of hate?
Minnesota is a land of good people. I trust them to judge the perpetrators of this rebellion as insurrections within the Dakota people. I must disagree with Milton then. Peace will be found, as it always can be. Do you have experience with war, Tom?
I've never served before, if that's what you're getting at. I was still a boy when Polk invaded Mexico.
When Mexico provoked a war...
You believe what that warmonger had to say?
I believe that young men will not be sent to fight when peace is an option. For Polk, it was...
Polk only wanted land for his railroad. He couldn't have cared less about the people of Mexico.
Oh, and I suppose Douglas had the same ill intent.
Of course! That conniving vulgarian had no beliefs. He only wanted votes to get power.
Oh, power? Like the wartime provisions enacted by the Lincoln administration?
You're not a supporter of Lincoln?
You are?
You're a Democrat?
You're a Republican? No experience with war, then?
No, not really.
Well, I'm older than you, Tom.
Yeah.
I remember when the British invaded from the north in 1812. It was just the four of us back then. My father, Jean-Baptiste, my younger sister, Lucy, myself, and my mother, Pelagie. We were living in Prairie du Chien in Wisconsin, near a military fort. That's where my father traded with the Indians for some time. We had a home, and our family was young. You remember I told you my father was a fur trader?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Good. So my father, Catholic man, conviction, was a business partner essentially with my mother. Fur traders back then, Tom, could have a wife with any native tribe they traded with, but not my father. He was devoted to my mother. She was his only wife and a strong mother. My Mary Elizabeth is strong. My boys know that. George is out with Sibley with the other party. But Daniel is more of a business mind, meticulous.
Like you.
Like me, yes. Does a family fit the image of the richest man in town?
Oh, now I should like to have a family. Raise them with the same morals my father raised me with. Teach them Greek and Latin and arithmetic. See their eyes widen the first time I tell the tale of Prometheus, or take them to hear their grandfather give a sermon in his pulpit. Feel with them the warm breeze and the rising anticipation of riding up the Mississippi in a steamboat. to just talk, to shape this young mind, influence its growth until finally it's just another person, and you could talk.
I hear your professional mind influencing your paternal mind. It's splendid. You'll make a fine father, Thomas.
Oh, Alex, come on. Whoa!
You carry open letters in your bag.
Yes. Well, these are letters, and I brought them.
A man's private business is not my own. There's no need to explain.
Her name is Anna Adelia Mallary.
A lovely name. Pelagie was a strong, strong mother. When the British invaded from the north, they went to the American fort and captured it. They found our house, my house, and burned it to the ground. All of our things gone, up in flames. I still see it. Father was captured and forced to fight for the British, but he refused. He stood by his conviction and was thrown into prison for years. My mother didn't think twice. She snatched up Lucy and me and threw us into a canoe and started rowing. She paddled for 90 miles. I could feel the prickling of the flames from our home for the entire trip. She took us to what is now Winona. She had family there. You see, my mother was the daughter of a Dakota chief. For the next 3 years, there we lived. Pelagie and her Lucy and her Alex and the Dakota. That was my first language. My mother's tribe was the Wahpeton, one of the 7 council fires of the Dakota Nation. My mother's family was every creature. Water was sacred. The meeting of the rivers was the source of Dakota culture. It was the origin of civilization. The world had my mother's respect and her love. That was my first language. Kinship was at the center of my mother's way of life. She supported family, and they supported her in return. That is what made one Dakota. The very word means friend. For her to be a good Dakota, she had to strive to retain those kinship rules, to be a good relative. Otherwise, she wouldn't be Dakota. She was civilized and good-mannered and had a sense of responsibility for every individual she dealt with. Pelagie was a good Dakota. My mother, those years with her tribe, we were taught that the Dakota lineage was formed at the meeting of the rivers and at the island located at Good night, Thomas.
Pardon me. Is that book you just took from the shelf, Prometheus bound?
Oh, yes, Aeschylus.
Aeschylus. Perfect. I need that for my next unit.
I had the book first. I'll be done with it in a few days and then you can have it.
I'm putting together my lesson plans this weekend. I need it immediately.
Well, if we're going to be rude about it, I might just take my time with it.
Excuse me?
I really want to savor every last syllable of this ancient Greek play. The work of Aeschylus is pure poetry.
Aeschylus. I'm afraid I must assert my precedence as a teacher of the Greek language by relieving you of that book.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to enact my seniority as a teacher of the universal language of music by accepting the weight of this publication. And you, being a chivalrous, enlightened gentleman, will respect my taking on that responsibility.
Where does this teacher of the universal language hail from?
Brooklyn. You?
Chelsea. Vermont. How long have you been teaching here?
I'm a relative newcomer to the academy. Yourself?
Same here. I teach Greek and Latin and arithmetic.
Oh, my. The students must love your classes.
Right. Because they love yours so much?
My music classes.
Okay. They may like yours more.
Well, I might have to sit in on one of your Greek classes sometime soon. You know, I actually just picked up a really interesting Greek play I'm very excited about. Maybe you've heard of it.
Perhaps. Which one?
It's by an ancient Greek tragedian named Aeschylus.
Aeschylus.
Aeschylus?
Aeschylus.
Aeschylus.
Well done. I think you might have a knack for Greek. Well, I'll let you get started on your reading.
Why don't we get started?
I should like to have a family. Raise them with the same morals my father raised me with. Teach them Greek and Latin and arithmetic. See their eyes widen the first time I tell the tale of Prometheus, or take them to hear their grandfather give a sermon in his pulpit. Feel with them the warm breeze, the rising anticipation of riding up the Mississippi in a steamboat. To just talk. To shape this young mind, influence its growth until finally it's just another person, and you could talk.
What is there to talk about?
Oh, Anna, there is still a future for us, but
What future is there? When you want to leave me for some fortune-seeking venture you have all plotted out like you're some figure of an
fortune.
older.
If I wanted money, I could have it here in the East. My father wants me to embark so that I can experience the world, and maybe along the way I'll make a name for myself.
A name for yourself. There it is. You'd rather go gallivanting into the wilderness than stay cooped up in the East with the likes of me.
Anna, you must know that if it were up to me alone, I would stay, but my father, he wants me to
Since when does your father chart your course in life? You'd rather muddy the Reverend's good name in my eyes than face me as if you were a man.
Use my father as a scapegoat.
But you are clearly the rambunctious younger son, vying for the admiration of your papa at my expense.
You think I'm going west to prove myself to my father?
Foolishly, yes.
I can't tell you how flattering it is to a lone, low creature like me to have a young lady like yourself take so deep an interest in my welfare. If I were capable of dwelling on that thought a moment, I should be unworthy of the interest you take. But, my dear, what would you have me do? Of course I would rather have me stay here in your parlor. Of course I care for your feelings, Anna. More than I care to tell you now. More than I ought to, I'm afraid, sometimes, but it is precisely because I do care for them that I propose to go.
But go. Why do you have to go? You're all the man I could desire. And if
Anna,
you would...
if you are going to be so foolish as to love me, I want you to find something worth loving.
You think I've gone this far to make a fool of myself? And done so for someone undeserving? You have ignited in me, Thomas. No, you have been respite for me with everything going on with my parents and sister. You've been my home.
And you have never left my mind, Anna. Since the day I first encountered that spark behind your eye, you've not left me. But it will be too hard. You can find happiness here, and will. I know it. I can't get in the way of that.
Tom, why don't I journey with you? We could be married, and your father's gift would more than support the both of us. You could set up a practice in the South. We could experience that together.
I'm afraid the only thing we'd experience where I'm going is the frigid temperature. I'm heading northwest to Minnesota.
Tom, the culture in those settlements is desolate. You'd be lucky to find another English speaker there. It's all traders and immigrants and Indians. It's pure wilderness.
Culturally desolate as it may be, I think you underestimate Minnesota. Anna, I did speak to your mother about the prospect of marriage. And
what?
She said,
when did you...
She said she couldn't see it fit. I'm not that much older than you are, and moreover, I have no prospects other than teaching, and that's hardly a job for a family man. Going west, I can build something for myself, Anna.
And for us, Tom?
You have a life here. Too much to leave behind. We'll write. And we always can write, as good friends do. And I must be content.
I know I must be too.
But I will forever be your dearest friend, my Delia. Her name is Anna Adelia Mallary. Anna.
Tom! How are you?
Oh, I am doing well. I've so loved your letters.
Oh, and I yours. It's good to hear your voice again. At least how it actually sounds and not just the imaginary voice I've developed from your letters.
I have some news. Rice County has hired me as an attorney.
Why, look at you. Teaming up with George has paid off, huh?
Handsomely.
What brings you back?
Oh, my brother. He's in the graduating class.
Oh, I think they're starting.
I suppose you... How's your sister doing?
Much the same. There's a lot to do. It's hard on my parents. I go over to help most weekends.
They are saints for accepting the burden. Weaker parents couldn't stomach it.
Don't say that. The alternative is hardly an option. Is that him?
Oh, that's him. That's my brother.
just I... What's that?
Hold on.
Captain, the horses! They're shooting the horses! Use the horse carts as a barricade! Pull them up! Lieutenant Gillum! They got caught! Brake left! The brake right! Brake firing! Lie low, all of you, and take good aim before you shoot! Take good aim! And fire! Steady, boys, steady! You give them hell!
Lower barricades are in place, Captain.
Henry.
Faribault. You see me in my moment of failure.
Had you not arrived, we would surely have been slaughtered. 36 hours of battle. Even with supplies, hanging on was losing likelihood.
But you held them off. They're on the roof now. Hopefully I'll have them finished off. Glad you made it through, friend.
President Lincoln.
My good Bishop of Faribault, Minnesota, please.
Our Republican papers tells us that you've been turning to scripture as of late.
I humbly find solace in the word in these times of turmoil, national and internal.
Yes, my congregation prayed for you and your family when we heard of your son's passing.
The people of Faribault have my respect and my thanks.
Mr. President, the people of Minnesota need your guiding hand. You know of the Dakota War that's been so recently resolved.
I have directed General Pope to seek out the remaining fighters in the West.
Yes, then you are also aware of the atrocious number of condemned souls on death row. 303 Dakota, Mr. President. Sir, death cannot atone for death. These trials were a miscarriage of justice, made possible in part by this country's failed Indian policy.
My darling Tom, what's become of you? Why haven't you written me?
My dear Anna, I've been quite preoccupied this past month. No doubt you've heard some news of the uprising since I last wrote. Perhaps in your papers you've read of a gallant soldier named Thomas Scott Buckham.
Oh no, Tom, you wouldn't. I never would have given my consent. To put yourself within an inch of death with scarcely a breath of warning. You will make me crazy. I must see you.
The uprising is past, my dear. Surely you've heard of the death sentences. It's been in all the papers.
Of course.
The danger is past for me, but you would shiver to know the fate of those Indians spared from death. I hear the lines of women and children stretch on for miles and miles.
You must come back to me. Come back!
Mr. President, sir, this government has committed serious crimes. The non-payment of $100,000 to the Lower Sioux, the starving to death of children, women destroyed by brutal violence, cruel robberies committed by the whites. These, sir, these are the dreadful causes of the recent outbreaks and massacres.
If we make it through this war and I yet live, this country's Indian policy will be changed.
And I look forward to that with great anticipation, sir, but respectfully, the people of Minnesota do not want the red man alive. They want them gone.
Get out of there, Tom. You can't expect me to feel safe allowing you to stay out there, to put our future at risk.
The Indians are in no state to pose a threat to me, Anna, but some of the poor boys and girls. People have been beaten, burned, and brutalized, to the point where their bodies resembled raw beef more than it did human flesh. A Dakota infant was stolen from his mother, found later, beaten to death. A baby, Anna.
A baby? Come immediately, without hesitation.
Sir, the Dakota are a majority good people, and the aggressors were but one small faction. One man called Good Thunder is a member of my congregation and recently remarried in the Episcopal Church. In my church, sir. Good Thunder and his family are devout members of my congregation as any white family is. I know them well. And through no fault of their own, they are now destitute and homeless. And he's not alone. Another man, Teope, who saved some 200 white soldiers during the war, seeks land for a home and for farming. Mr. President, I have known a good many Christian men, but none filled with the light of God such as Teope. These native, innocent Americans are just that, sir. Innocent Americans, and the people of Minnesota need your leading hand in embracing them as such. We spoke before the war of this nation's Indian policy, and Mr. President, I steadfastly believe that these policies, devoid of any conviction, were the sole instigator of this war and its bloodshed.
From where all our current bloodshed seems to stem.
I succeeded in worrying through the night. I didn't sleep much. Oh, my heart's treasure, what I wouldn't give to have you back in my arms.
I could not, with a clear conscience, spend the winter in your parlor, Anna, while they who survived the death march spend it in ragged tents under the fort. I have looked death in the eyes with my boots dug into this soil. I cannot leave now.
Mr. President, sir, I would not add a feather's weight to the burdens of your heart, but I must plead to someone for those who have no one to plead for them.
This place so desperately needs healing, Anna. Now is not the time for me to forsake them. Not since the election have I seen the town so divided. It seems the people are more scared of the Indians now that we've beaten them.
Oh, Tom, do you know how dear you are to me?
Of course, my dear.
I love you.
I love you too.
A letter to the editor of the Faribault Central Republican. Shall they be executed? It is said the president has decided not to deal in a vengeful manner with the condemned Indian murderers now in the hands of our troop. And it is rumored that a dispatch has been sent to Mankato forbidding their execution. We hope these rumors may prove unfounded. We should be sorry to see the government of the United States so clearly exhibit its weakness, imbecility, and disregard for its friends. Of one thing the president may rest fully assured, and that is if mercy is extended to the cursed Dakota Sioux, now in the hands of our army and condemned to death, he will look in vain to Minnesota for friends or support in the future. If we have reached that state in affairs of this country, when the lives of 1,000 loyal whites are of less consequence to the government of the United States than is the lives of 300 or 300,000 for that matter, of treacherous savages who delight in the butchery of women and children, if 200 American women may be taken in outrage by a band of savages with impunity, then it is time that the people of Minnesota took the preservation of their state honor, their protection of their own frontier, the lives and property of their own citizens, and the avenging of these outrages into their own hands. The murder of 1,000 peaceful men, women, and children is no trifling matter. The capture and violation of 300 women is something that strikes terror to the heart of every citizen. The citizen of Minnesota who could quietly agree to the extension of mercy is unworthy of breathing place upon the virgin soil of Minnesota. It now remains for the president to decide whether he will allow such punishment to be inflicted upon the guilty as the enormity of their crimes deserves. A lasting and healthy punishment will teach them that lesson. The lesson must be taught to them and punishment inflicted in one way or the other. The people have willed it, and he would be less than mad and unworthy to breathe the free, pure atmosphere of Minnesota, who would dare to thwart the will of the people in this case, or to keep these guilty hellhounds from the fate they so richly merit.
My office has reviewed the cases of all 303 Indian men on death row. We have found 8 and 30 who directly participated in violence and the rape of citizens. They will be the only Indians hanged. The rest are to be dealt with otherwise.
Alexander, I've spoken to General Sibley. He's being told to deport the entirety of the Dakota people, Good Thunder and Teope, and the rest of the friendlies here. I begged the general to let me come to you and see if there was some land that we could purchase, that I could procure.
My land. Let them stay with me on my land.
Are you certain you can house them for...
My home is open.
We don't know how long I need a place to stay. I've been in contact with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I know that Dakota will do their part.
Save your pitch for those who need to hear it. I know their conviction. I know you've been close to Teope.
He's been saving money for his land purchase. I shudder to think of him, or any other man for that matter, put up like that on the river.
The Mankato hangings were horrific.
I don't mean the hangings, Alexander. I mean the concentration camp there just below Fort Snelling. 130 have died already. Disease and hunger spread at a constant rate. The whites come down just to torment the innocent.
Where is this concentration camp?
It's at this landing at the meeting of the Minnesota and the Mississippi, just a stone's throw from Pike Island.
Pike Island?
Yes.
I know it by another name. Pelagie Island. It was my mother's island.
Your mother's island? Just moments from the Dakota.
We moved there after reuniting with my father when he was released by the British. My mother took ownership of the island. Badote, the meeting of the rivers. It was the source of Dakota culture. It's where life originated, according to the stories. My father called it their Eden. It was my home, where I learned, where we played and harvested and hunted. It was her home, our home. She loved our home. The water creeping on the shoreline. From there, you could travel anywhere in the Dakota Nation, to any family member, to any hunting party, to any sacred place. You could see it all from Pelagie Island.
Alex, I've been there. All you can see now is a death encampment.
When I grew up, we saw the fort growing up on the bluff. It's where I started trading with Henry.
You've read about Sibley's next assignment, then?
No.
Oh, God help me. Sibley is leading the raids west to finish off the fleeing Dakota. The guilty and the innocent. He's been given orders to capture or kill.
Henry. Sibley knows which his men will choose. It is no army he's leading. It is a genocide.
Extermination. Swift, sure, and terrible is the only thing.
My dear Anna, I've been hard at work getting ready for the new school year. It's a one-room schoolhouse deep in the big woods, and I don't anticipate many students. It's a late harvest this year. My love, I've been thinking of your last query, and unless things take a turn for the worse here, as I don't anticipate them doing, I suppose I may have an answer for you soon enough. Ah, my pupil awaits. I shall write to you again as soon as I am able. Yours as ever, and ever yours.
My dear Tom, At the academy, we're about the same. My uncle threatens the music department in the name of attendance, but he has a soft spot for his favorite niece. My, aren't you ever impressive, though? First you're off to put down the Indian revolt, and now you're heading up a school district. Is this what they call making a name for yourself? Yours so lovingly.
My dear Anna, some may call it that, but I can hardly stand the pace of things here. Right now, there's a rush around everything, but in the spring, I find I'm generally lazy and have fits of doing nothing. Demosthenes sometimes even sleeps.
Mr. Buckham, what is this word?
Beauty. Do you know what that means?
Beauty too rich for use, for earth too dear.
Demosthenes, huh? So you're the first lawyer of Athens, then? For a moment, I was worried humility would set in. No, you are actually the Demosthenes of the West.
Humbly.
Humbly. You are being dramatic, though. Why ever should you be bored? You've got the Literary Society, which you started, after the Lyceum Society ended, which you also started. My dear, if you're bored, you could just start another society. You managed to keep busy enough in your Athens of the West.
With confidence, my dear. This is Shakespeare. It is meant to be bellowed. Stand up straight, with your belly out, like the great Shakespearean actors out east. If it were done, when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. Now, you try. Emulates the most dashing actor in America.
If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here.
Brava! You're on your way to being a regular John Wilkes Booth. My dear, I did not end up purchasing that house I looked at. I need to take some more time and figure out what it is I really want and where I want to establish a more permanent home, one suitable for a family.
Sorry we're late, Miss Mallary.
It's all right. Be seated. Okay, well, ready? We're going to do a chromatic scale as a warm-up. Ready? Ready? Wait, stop. That's quite enough. I want that spit valve emptied, and I want you to clean whatever that is. And you're doing wonderfully. Let's take a look at the solos that I've placed on your stands. We're going to be sight reading for our pop quiz today. Now remember, it's not about perfection, just give it a go. Mr. Temple, if you would. Yes? Let's try that another time. We'll give you another go at the spit valve, maybe. All right. You go ahead, Mr. Ledman. Ready? It's all right. No. Nope, not today. Maybe, we'll find you a nice stringed instrument. We'll think on it. You go ahead and give it a crack. I'm so glad you didn't buy that house in Faribault and can't quite like it enough to settle in. It's so far away and so cold. To satisfy me in the long run, I'd like to have you on this side of the Mississippi. Not that I should have any say in the divinations of the wise Demosthenes.
Oh, if I could only eat my words. How is your family?
My sister has her ups and downs. Father says that after the war lets out, we may see a new doctor, pursue a new sort of treatment. It's just been so hard on them both. They rely on me so much, Tom, for both physical and emotional support. My mother relies especially on the latter. She's been talking to me a lot lately about you.
Oh? On what subject?
Well, the prospect of our marriage. She's been pricking me about the matter for months, and I tried to leave a hint for you in one of my previous letters, but you wouldn't take it at all. Are we engaged, darling?
Tell your mother that although our acquaintance has grown steadily since our time at the academy, that I have never, until very recently, seriously considered the prospect of marriage. Tell her that I must carefully consider the issue of money. And when I have got that straightened out, I shall write her as pretty a note as I can with copious assurances to look after your happiness. My dear, your mother and I both appreciate the truth of the situation, and that truth being that I am not in a position to be married as of yet.
How long have we been writing now, Tom? 8 years? My dear, how much longer can we do anything but write? We must wait until the war closes. Well, how long will that be? I hate to think of it.
It seems wrong to write to you of love and hopes for the future while so many thousands are cut off from hope and love.
Well, once the war is closed, what's stopping us? I should think the first lawyer of Athens has the means to support a wife, a family.
Money-making isn't a lawyer's business, but it is something he can do. Something I know I can do. And I have no doubt that in the very near future, I shall be able to comfortably support us both in a home of our own.
As soon as the war ends.
Not a moment after.
Where civil blood makes civil hands unclean, from forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life.
Good. Excellent diction. My own darling, I'm sick of writing you letters. They're so unsatisfactory. They have no eye to add meaning to the mere words, no pulse to beat or heart to throb. I can't say anything on paper.
I know it, darling.
And you know very well that you are the dearest thing to me that the world has. And I wouldn't hesitate an instant between you alone in the one hand and the universe in the other.
I don't believe I love you rightly. You're my idol, my very life.
As you are mine, yours as ever.
Yours in agony.
And ever yours.
Your Delia.
Your Tom.
Alexander, I've read the letters to the editor, and I fear you're losing trust in your own town. The threats hurt, even if they're without merit. Believe me, I've received my fair share. We'll find a place for them, somehow. And you can go on and live your life, but at this rate, Alexander, the Dakota will bleed you dry. You cannot continue to give them money and supplies when no one else will do business with you. We'll find a place for them, outside the town.
This town is the place for them. It has to be. Otherwise, what have I built? This is the community of Faribault. Faribault is part Dakota. If the citizens can excommunicate any population they revile, then who's to stop them from doing the same thing to the French or Episcopalians? That isn't the place I built. When I started this town, I let anyone with the means and a respect for the land build a home. I respected them, and they did the same for me. They will see that the love I have for the Dakota is not treasonous, but is the same neighborly love I have for them. We are neighbors in the human race. That is the community of Faribault. I trust the people of Faribault. A letter to the editor of the Faribault Republican. Having been informed that a report is circulating that I am harboring a large number of guilty Indians and that threats of violence have been made to the Indians on my land, I deem it my duty to quiet the fears of persons who might believe such reports to be true. Though I hope my fellow citizens will examine for themselves. I have shared the names and histories of all the Indians in Faribault. I know these Indians well, and I know them to be harmless, innocent, and good people. But if the citizens of Faribault are not disposed to protect these friends of the whites, all I ask is that they may not be harmed, that I may have time to notify General Sibley and have them safely removed if the people do not wish them to remain. I await notice of your determination.
Can't you see the beginning of the end yet? At last, peace is in sight.
Please, I'd like to make a toast. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank our wonderful friends, the newly wedded Buckhams, for hosting us at their beautiful boarding house. Tom and Anna, at this time of division and struggle for the soul of Faribault, it warms us all to have an occasion like this to celebrate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thomas, my boy, I haven't seen a couple like you and Miss Mallary since I met my Cornelia.
Oh, go on.
I never even considered a life in the church till I met her. I was just this hardened East Coast kid with this bold ambition. She loosened me up, showed me a life I could respect, a life with purpose.
You see that with Anna and me?
Of course I do, don't you?
Yeah, I do. But it's so good to hear.
You must be Mr. Faribault. Tom's told me so much about you.
Oh, and I've heard about you. My city will be proud to call itself your home.
Oh, I always thought I would end up living in the South, but yesterday Tom took me ice skating on the river. It was delightful. I could get used to Tom's little Faribault.
It's funny you should call it little. I remember when mine was the only wooden home here. But there were other types, of course, and there still are.
You've got quite a mix here. Most places you find are all Dutch or all Swedish or all one thing or another.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Anna. Young couples like the Buckhams leave my city in good hands.
I should like to see a trapper such as yourself in the likes of Brooklyn. It's busier, noisier, has more going on.
I've been to Washington and out east. It's noisier, certainly, but my family is here. My home is more my speed.
Tom tells me that your sons have entered your line of work, owning land and what was it, the other, working with the Indians.
Oh, yes, my son George. When the time comes, he's headed west to represent the Wapakute on their reservation. He's always packed, never quite sure when he's going to be leaving.
Oh, it's hard to leave family. I left my parents and sister to come here.
To be with Tom.
To build a new home.
In Faribault.
In Faribault.
And what a lovely home it will be for you and Tom.
Don't let it dampen your ambitions, Thomas. Now, just let it manifest itself in the form of a home. I mean, you have the means to build a meaningful one.
Thank you, sir.
Isn't this just a delight, Alexander? I do wish my Cornelia could have been here. This brings back so many fond memories.
A new home, a new family, endless hope.
Yes. Yes, it certainly returns some of the optimism I've been missing lately. Thomas, Alexander, I've been in correspondence with General Sibley, and he's been in correspondence with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There's nothing more I can do. There's nothing more we can try for now. I want them here, Alexander. You know I do, but the future of this town is taking shape here, whether or not we decide to make an impact on it. We'll keep fighting for the Dakota, Alexander. We'll keep fighting. But for now, let us be happy. Tom and Anna are married. This is a joyous occasion.
Forgive me.
My friend, we cannot lose you over one part of your life. There's another part that still needs you.
Both parts still need me. And I will be there for both.
Okay, no peeking.
The doctor said I still need to take it easy. Tom, watch it.
Peeking. Okay, we're almost there.
You're really not one for surprises, dear.
Now, be
Making me
careful here.
nervous.
Now, watch your step. And step.
Oh, what is this, Tom? We're going to be late for the meeting.
One more step and hold it.
All right, what is it?
There.
It's a house.
The finest in town. Dipped into what's left of the Reverend's pot.
It's big. How many rooms is it?
More than we'll ever need. It's made with Greek influence. That was hard to come by.
I like the pillars.
Figured we could plant some maple trees up in the front over there for shade and put a carriage house back in the back. And, oh, Anna, there's a beautiful spot right up front, full of natural light. It's just perfect for our own little library.
It's a beautiful building.
We have a home now, Anna.
But we had a home, Tom, the boarding house.
But this is a proper home, our temple.
It's so much to do.
We'll manage. We've faced bigger
obstacles. Why the undertaking?
It's what we've always talked about. This house is everything.
No, it's not, Tom.
I don't understand. You don't like the house?
No, it's not that. It's just...
This is what we've always wanted.
No,
We always wanted to build a home.
A home, Tom. A home with a family. A house isn't going to give us what we're missing. And I don't need a giant, constant reminder of what I can't do, what I failed to do.
Anna, it's not anything you did or didn't do that the doctor said. And the surgery, it was... We still have each other. That is our home. This is our house. We can still be proud of both.
I'm going to Brooklyn tomorrow.
To visit her gravesite?
No, it's not that. My mother wrote to me yesterday. It's my sister.
You have to leave so soon?
Yes. Oh, sorry, this part in the book. It reminded me of that trip we took last year. Okay, you know when I stayed on the boat and you were on the mainland with Mother.
Yes.
And I was with the Englishman and the Confederate.
Yes, quite the picture it makes. Rebels in redcoats make strange bedfellows.
Exactly. Oh, all right. So one day, this is where there was a lapse in my letters to you. So I was up on deck, and the Englishman and the Confederate go back to blaming the other for each other's problems, and that's when I felt it.
Felt what?
A tickling.
A tickling?
A tickling in my stomach.
Oh no, Anna,
I was seasick. Oh, I jolted up from my seat, made a beeline for my stateroom, and the Confederate, upon seeing this, decided to employ his gentlemanly southern manner and said, "Going down, Mrs. Buckham?" And I abruptly replied, "Yes," but I was not in a mood to discuss ways or means. So he follows me down the stairs and clunking his big boots every step of the way, add that to the buoyant floor. Well, do you need to be told anything more. I reckon your imagination must supply the rest. I've never yelled so loudly in my life.
Oh, Anna, you yelled at a Confederate general?
That man didn't so much as wince at Grant or McClellan, but for the rest of that trip, he was terrified of me.
Oh, I bet he was.
We had a meeting of the library board this past week. We've got an exciting new shipment of books coming in. Let me tell you about them.
The shipment won't arrive until after our maple sugaring party.
Oh, which will be such fun. Watching all the children run around with their buckets, watching the sap slowly just come out of the trees. They're such a delight. Tom, I received a letter from my mother yesterday. It seems my sister's condition is worsening, and they're going to need me by the weekend.
Well, I suppose you'll be leaving before dinner tomorrow then?
Well, yes, but...
Well, I won't be able to see you off. District judges can't just clock out early. So, I suppose I won't be seeing my wife until the next week? Or even the next month, I suppose?
Tom, you're not upset, are you? Because we were very clear when we married that...
No, I'm not upset. If I were upset, it would mean I had no heart for your mother or your sister.
Well, because, our nuptials are very clear that I can go to tend to my family whenever necessary.
Well, what about your family here? They're not all in Brooklyn, you know.
What would you have me do, dear? My sister is sick, and my parents can't
I am a proud man, Anna, but I'm not above groveling if I must. I get lonely in this big, empty house.
Tom, why don't you come with me to Brooklyn? Well, we can more than afford the trip.
I am a judge, Anna, duty bound to the bench, and I won't abandon that duty on every whim.
This isn't a whim, Tom. It's my sick, invalid sister. Tell the fine people of the court that much. Tell them how we've been hanging on for years. Tell them how my parents can't afford a full-time nurse. Tell them that's why we've been just resisting every urging to just send her off to the asylum. Tell them that's why your wife keeps abandoning you.
Maybe I will. They know that last much anyway. Imagine how it feels, Anna, to be alone out there in the streets of Faribault. It's a small town. Pity and rumor travel fast. And it's not hard to see why they think that...
Think what?
Think that you're just avoiding your husband.
What's keeping me here, Tom? Really, what is there?
Why, you're a figure. The Literary Society and the Garden
Tom,
Club.
Really? It's you. You are the only thing keeping me here. And I break a little every time I see you alone in this big, empty house. But I'm alone too, even when we're together. I'm going to Brooklyn tomorrow. We can write, and we always can write.
Come in, Alex. I'm sorry, I forgot you were coming today. I have your books.
That's all right, Thomas. The last of the Dakota on my land were forced off yesterday. A friendly face is all I've... Is now a bad time?
What? No. I'll get your books.
I'm sorry to barge in, Anna. Is there trouble in the Buckham home?
This isn't my home.
What? Anna?
Come now. The first governor of Minnesota made nervous by a graveyard.
Hadn't spoken to him in years. He rejected the money I sent him.
That's because he felt the people of Faribault would always provide for him. It's a conviction he never lost, even after the Dakota left. He believed in and respected all men, even you, Sibley.
He lost his hope, though. Many people wrote to me, worried. Said the light in his eye had gone out.
Well, that was the vision of the town that he saw. When that didn't come to fruition, I think that dream died with Teope.
Bishop, I don't want to talk.
You don't want to talk about the struggle because you weren't part of it.
Teope was my friend, too.
And while you were in St. Paul in Washington talking to your cohorts about your friend, Alex and I were left here to actually take care of them, to house them, to feed them, to defend them. It would shock you, sir, if I told you half of what men said to Alex and myself, because we believe Indians have souls.
That's what made you a good missionary. You saw them as redeemable souls. My cohorts weren't so generous.
Redeemable. As if being a red man were inherent to sin. I converted them, yes, but I didn't force them. Others forced. I didn't force the likes of Good Thunder. Oh, Good Thunder. Sibley, did I ever tell you what he said to me the day he was finally forced off Alex's land? My God, some of my hardest trials have been saying goodbye to the Christian Indians. We held a service for them at St. Mary's, and Alex was in the front row. And the next day they were loaded onto the steamship. And as he steps on, Good Thunder stops and he hugs me. And he tells me it was hard to leave the only man he had known as a father. But he had no home, he said. He had to go. His destroyed expression as he rode down the river was the last I ever saw of Good Thunder.
It was difficult. Very. To say goodbye and see my
Sibley, you
struggle.
helped with the Dakota when Alex no longer had the means, and that was noble. But you know who was no longer here, breathing to accept your generosity?
Bishop,
Teope. Did I tell you I saw him die, Governor? It was the anniversary of the town in the middle of February, and he had sent me a letter saying he was coming to town to see me, but that he was sick. Now, he was only 45 years old, and a 45-year-old man doesn't tell you he's sick unless it's serious. He called Faribault the ancient and favorite seat of the Dakota band. And all he wanted was some land for home and for farming, and he never got it. Even after the war, sir, when the government said he had earned it due to his heroic service, he still never got it. He looked me in the face and he took a breath, and then he just stopped. He seemed more tired than scared. I loved that man. Teope was family.
No, he was Alex's family. He was our friend.
I'm sorry I failed you, friend. Alex felt he had filled them too. And now all that's left of his people are a handful of Dakota in the back of my church. I hope the railroad industry remains good to you.
Child of a western trading post, traveler and trader over these silent prairies, protector and father to tribes yet untainted by our vices, instructor of religion to pagan listeners around the evening campfires, founder of a city that he would live to see flourish, at one time possessor of a large wealth, of which he was generous to a fault to assist the poor Indians. Then again, victim of misfortune and poverty, but ever and everywhere, the believer in God, who never deceives or deserts. Ever and everywhere, the recipient of the esteem and the love of all who knew him, especially of the inhabitants of this city.
Being your neighbor was the greatest honor in my life.
I have spoken of his joy in the church's prosperity, but he rejoiced and he gloried in all the noble institutions of learning which crown yonder hill and make so noble a background to the pretty valley of the Cannon, and justify the title you claim for this city, the Athens of the West. The first time he came to see me, shortly after my arrival 3 months ago, standing on our hill, looking across to the bluff, where the gabled roofs of Shattuck, the dome of the Institute, the spires of St. Mary's, and the monastic-looking steeple of Divinity loom over the town nestling on the riverbank. Father, he said to me, when I think back to the early days of this place, it seems to be a dream. Yes, Mr. Faribault, I said, but a beautiful dream, n'est-ce pas? Is it not so? Yes. Yes, a beautiful dream.
He was the kindest man I knew. When Good Thunder was baptized, he cut his hair and he turned over his tomahawk and his medicine bag.
And so, the evening of his life, though clouded with poverty, loneliness, and disease, was lit up by mellow rays of joy, consolation, and honest pride in the work his youth began and his old age blessed. May he rest in peace after his long and cherished life. After his wanderings and sorrows, may he rest in peace. The story of Alexander Faribault will go down in the unwritten traditions of Indian legend, as well as in the printed records of an American city, for he was a bond, a trusted agent between the two races, and that connection was a benefit and a blessing to both.
I've been thinking about my life. I've decided it's a failure.
May he rest in peace in the bosom of that God he believed in and loved and worshiped to the last, sustained his faltering courage during his illness.
Alex,
in heaven may his soul rest in peace, and on earth to his memory be the noblest monument, the honorable tribute of this city's grief, and the lasting tribute of this city's name.
They, looking back, all the eastern side beheld of paradise, so late their happy seat. Waved over by that flaming brand, the gate with dreadful faces thronged and fiery arms. Some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon. The world was all before them, where to choose their place of rest, and Providence their guide. They, hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, through Eden took their solitary way. Sometimes it's hard for me to believe that for 31 years I was a district judge. Holding that kind of power over people's lives, the pressure could be immense.
You held the title with grace. Not everyone could earn the title, the Sage of Faribault.
But many have the potential. You are an exceptional young man, Dr. Cowling. I'm glad I hired you for that college position. It stuck you here so I could keep your conversation.
Well, then I suppose I am grateful for multiple reasons, and indebted to you, it would seem.
College president at age 28. Easily a sage in the making.
You know, my girls still talk anxiously about the next time they can come to Uncle Buckham's for the sap tapping. I can't easily explain it can only happen infrequently. 4 against 1 logic doesn't always win the day, I'm afraid.
You are a fine father, Donald.
Thank you.
They're free to come over any time, although the maples won't be ready for tapping for a couple of months. They are welcome to borrow from our library whatever they like. But I suppose with Carleton College's collection at their disposal, that doesn't mean so much.
Nonsense. The promise of your company will be more than enticement enough. I will make a point of getting Crete and the girls to visit.
Crete. A fascinating name for a fascinating woman. Also, a fascinating Greek island. I still can't get over that.
I find it far more amusing when she's not present. She hears a great deal of those comments, as you can imagine.
I mean only adoration, no teasing.
Of course.
You must give her my best.
Of course. Speaking of fascinating women, has Anna written lately? If I'm not mistaken, the last time I was in Brooklyn, she said she could potentially be back soon.
We write daily. Her sister only gets worse. And since her parents passed, she's really the only one to look after her. So we write.
How long has it been?
Let's see. 14 years since Teresa, Anna's mother, passed. And Anna left before then when they were 6, so 1907 or 08.
17 years.
Luella! Wonderful weather for work today, isn't it? See how the ice glistens in the branches? I have something for you. Oh, I think. Maybe. Oh, there you are. Do you have anything for me today? What? Oh, you scamp. Thank you.
Is it from Anna? Tom?
Care to go inside?
Thank you.
You'll want to keep your coat on, Donald. It's a bit drafty.
I'm no stranger to the cold. I've mention my boyhood in Canada?
You did. I believe when you told me that story, you said something about a rutabaga.
Ah, yes. They are not fond memories of mine. It was a typical Canadian winter, and my family was so poor that we couldn't afford anything but rutabagas all season long. I hate rutabagas.
Donald, I admit I've never carefully considered my relationship with rutabagas.
All the ugliness of the potato, none of its earthy charm, I'm afraid.
Oh, that sounds right.
Back then, a house of this size would have been beyond my wildest dreams.
I confess to you, I still do not fully understand why I bought this house.
I've wondered at times. You never spend a dime on yourself.
It's much too large for Anna and me, and I can tell you I had no inclination to help with the housework.
I'm sure.
Oh, I think about it often.
Now that I think about it, how do you stay healthy in this cold? Coal is not expensive, and I stand in judgment of no man, but if I'm not mistaken, that shirt has been in your collection since before I've known you.
Oh.
Looking a bit weather-worn, friend. Liable to get sick for once in your life.
Well, I've been called a cheapskate, and I don't know that I disagree. I do not believe in spending money needlessly.
May I?
Oh, please.
Oh. Tom, surely a few dollars could have been spared for more comfortable seating. This thing feels like it hasn't been sat in years.
Oh,
stiff.
Donald. I trust you. As you know, I've never felt compelled to purchase an automobile.
I understand your perspective. You know, an automobile is as smelly and dangerous as a horse, but at least you can name a horse. Or eat it.
Well put.
I'm sorry.
Yes, as I was saying, I've never purchased an automobile, and so I walk. Mm-hmm. As I walk, I pass people, and they talk. Mm-hmm. And they erroneously assume the old man's hearing is failing him, and so they fail to cloud their gossip in quiet.
That is unfortunate, but you're a strong man. Sure it doesn't faze you.
Donald, do you love your wife?
Yes. Creed has been the greatest love of my life since college.
What if Creed had to go away? Forever, perhaps. Would you stop loving her? Or would she ever stop loving you?
Tom, don't give a farthing to the errant thoughts of nosy strangers. I have known you for more than a decade, and in my travels to Brooklyn, I have spoken with Anna on many occasions. In you two, I see a couple devoted as few are. In this room, I see a couple devoted as few are. If every gossip could see 17 years' worth of daily letters, no one would doubt that. Hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees?
A beautiful verse. Thank you. Donald, I've come to that time in my life where it's prudent to be thinking about my legacy. I see the legacy of my friends now past. Whipple has his cathedral tower. Alex, this whole town. I wish to be remembered, but I don't wish to be remembered as a man without love. The rumors and the brutal words of condescension, I know they won't go away. History is one part rumor, one part fiction, after all. And there are no young Buckhams to tell stories of me to their children and grandchildren. All I can do is hope that my friends strive to preserve some remnant of the truth. Will you do that for me, Donald?
Of course.
I'm in your debt. Do you remember the next part of that verse from Romans 8 that you recited a moment ago?
I think so.
Let's see.
Hope that if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience.
Right you are. Let me show you something.
When did you do this?
It's completely refurbished. If you wander through this house, you'll find the finest furniture and carpeting and decorations anywhere in the city. Maybe even the region.
It's a different house. Does Anna know?
Oh, she has no idea. When she comes back, Donald, this used to be an ugly thing, huge and empty and hollow, and I've turned it into a place worthy of inviting friends and hosting parties and living a full life. I even fixed our beloved bookshelf.
She'll be shocked.
There's not a second that passes I don't imagine her lighting up with joy at the sight of this house. Well, that's 3, and the days grow short. I suppose you'd better be getting home, Doctor. This season is not kind to night travelers.
But what a merry season it is in the light of day. What are you doing for Christmas?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm inviting you to the Cowling House for Christmas this year.
Donald,
Tom,
that's not...
I want you there. The girls will love it. I'll come by, pick you up, take you over to Northfield. You can spend the night.
Oh, I couldn't do that.
The house will be here in the morning. What do you say? Will the sage grace us with his presence?
It would be my pleasure.
Wonderful.
Excuse me, is this seat available?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. You from Faribault? Ah, you wouldn't happen to know anything about the canning factory?
I've met some of the family that runs it.
Well, that's where I'm headed to. Could be a profitable investment.
They're expanding, I've heard.
Really? Well, let's hope my hand doesn't change that. So what compels you to get to Faribault?
Family.
Really? I had you pegged as a Brooklyn woman. Never would have guessed you had a packed up there.
My husband. I'm from Brooklyn.
Really? Packed in both places.
Well,
who would be in Brooklyn?
Just my sister.
Okay. And who would be in Faribault?
Just my husband.
Wow. Just like my wife, Deborah. We were living in Brooklyn, and her aunt lived in Boston. Not exactly the hike you've got, but still, she commuted back and forth between the two places until her aunt died. Oh, typhoid, gone in a weekend. Almost killed Deborah.
Oh, how did she cope?
I'm not so sure coping is what she did. You know, maybe it did kill her. Nah, consumption got her after she buried her aunt. I didn't make it to that funeral. I was just too busy, tied up with work. You know, I actually wrote Deborah a letter after she died. The word of her death never did reach me. Before she left, we had a squabble, a typical argument, disagreement that we've been having for years. When she boarded that train to visit her aunt, it just all came back to me in a real watershed moment. I had to write it down and couldn't wait to send it off, but, well, I think she got it. She knows what I said.
If you don't mind, what did you say?
When she left for the last time, it all came back to me in that watershed moment. All those nights I wasn't home to kiss her goodnight, and the times I didn't walk her to the train. In that moment, I remember when we first met, when we got married, when we had our children. I wrote it all down so I wouldn't fumble the words. I just needed to tell her one more time how much I loved her. How much I missed her warmth.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring all this up.
Well, that's quite all right. Actually, the more I talk about it is good. It helps to bring back that warmth. I can actually feel that warmth when I share her with others. So you're headed back to your husband in Faribault?
Yes, he's sick.
Well, you're alone. Where's your sister?
She's sick too.
My, you're really grasping for all the family you can. You know, I envy you. I wish I still had them to reach for.
Where's Tom? Take me to Tom. I need to see him. Where is he? Take me to Tom.
I'm so sorry. He passed yesterday. I'm so sorry. It's okay. Come on. Let's get you home. Have you seen the house? additions to the Faribault Library. Brought you some I thought you might enjoy. Fitzgerald, Aeschylus, new one I've never heard of, Hemingway. They're starting to run out of space, that old City Hall library room. Should have put Tom Buckham on the job. Groceries are in the kitchen. No new mail. Is there anything else I can do for you?
I just have a question. Do you think we should have buried Tom here? Some of the county people were saying after the funeral that Faribault would have been a more fitting place than Chelsea.
As much as Tom loved Faribault, he valued heritage. Vermont was his familial root, this was his home, but that was his heritage.
Thinking now, he might have valued home over history. He was planning on being laid next to me and our...
Are you being buried in Vermont?
I was hoping for Brooklyn with my parents and sister.
Sister?
Oh, you haven't heard. I received the letter yesterday.
I'm so sorry.
Tom loved Faribault. It is a splendid little town, isn't it? He adored it.
Certainly. Saw it when it was 7 buildings, now when it's hundreds. Practically raised it. You know, they say he was still the wealthiest man in town when he died.
I'm sure he didn't know that. He didn't divide anything up in his will, just left it all to me.
$2 million is a lot to unwittingly accumulate.
Yet I'm not surprised. It was Tom.
It was.
We should commemorate him for the town somehow.
Is that what you're writing?
Oh no, this is a letter to our nephew, the architect.
There's a lot you could do to commemorate a life. The Sage of Faribault.
Oh God, he'd never let me forget that one.
You should.
Demosthenes.
Fitting, isn't it? Tom has his golden view of Central Avenue, and it all leads to that. A horse stable. I'm sure he appreciated the foresight God had in that placement. It must have peeved him, staining his perfect view.
We should do away with that old livery stable that annoyed Tom so much.
Nothing that $2 million couldn't remedy.
I'm pleased to inform you that after a half year of construction, our massive project is ready to be unveiled. Our nephew Charles designed the building, and the murals were done by an art professor from Carleton College. Everything is drawn from the Greeks, which Tom adored so much.
In commemoration of not only a good civil servant, but a good man, one who valued education and who had a neighborly kinship for all who called this land their home, I present to you, the people of Faribault, the Thomas Scott Buckham Memorial Library. Anna spent the rest of her life in Faribault. Fitting that she could be buried here in Brooklyn with Tom.
That third Margaret doesn't have a name.
The baby Anna had, stillborn, just before Tom bought the house.
They're all together.
The Buckham family.